The research colony on the edge of human space was small and quiet. It stood on the surface of a cold moon that circled a giant blue planet. Most days were the same. Engineers worked on machines, farmers looked after greenhouses, and soldiers guarded the walls. The colony was not large, but it was important. It was one of the first human settlements close to alien borders, and everyone knew that one mistake could turn into a problem between species. Captain Elias Marin had lived on the colony for 3 years. He was an engineer, not a soldier, though he carried a sidearm like the rest of them. His job was to keep the colony's systems working, power grids, water lines, and the delicate shields that protected them from radiation storms. He was a quiet man, respected by the colonists because he was steady and fair. People knew that if Elias promised to fix something, it would be fixed. One morning, everything changed. A transport ship landed in the docking bay. It carried supplies from Earth, food, medicine, and tools. But this time there was also a sealed chamber with alien symbols carved into its surface. The guards checked it carefully, scanning for weapons, toxins, or hidden devices. They found nothing harmful. Yet no one knew what it was. The governor of the colony, a woman named Rhea, called for Elias. "Captain," she said when he arrived, "this package has your name written on it. The markings are from the Alithians." Elias frowned. The Alithians were an advanced race, tall and graceful, with glowing markings on their bodies. They were not enemies, but they were not close friends either. Contact between humans and Alithians was still rare. "Why would they send me something?" Elias asked. "That is what we are about to find out," Governor Rhea said, folding her arms. "Open it." The chamber hissed, and the walls slid apart. Everyone in the docking bay held their breath. Inside, sitting calmly, was a figure. She looked human at first glance. Her skin was pale, almost like ivory, and her hair shone with silver strands. But faint lines of light ran across her arms and neck, glowing softly like veins of energy. Her eyes were bright violet, sharp but kind. She wore a simple white garment, and when she stepped out, she moved with perfect balance as though every step was practiced. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I am a gift." The soldiers around Elias shifted uneasily. Some raised their weapons. Lyra looked at them with no fear. "A gift?" Elias repeated, trying to understand. "Yes," she said. "From the Alithian people to you, Captain Elias Marin." Governor Rhea stepped forward. "Explain yourself. Why would the Alithians send a person?" Lyra turned her eyes toward Elias, ignoring the governor for a moment. "You are an engineer, a builder. The Alithian Council chose you because you create, not destroy. They believe you will treat me not as an object, but as something else." Her words were strange, and Elias did not like them. He did not like the idea of receiving a person as though she were a tool or a decoration. "I don't need a gift," Elias said firmly. "Especially not one that speaks and thinks. You're not a package. You're alive." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. Her glowing markings shifted faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "And yet here I am." The governor called for security to scan her again, but Lyra raised her hand gently. "You do not need fear. I am not a weapon. My task is simple: to learn, to help, and to stand beside the human named Elias." For the rest of the day, rumors spread across the colony. Some whispered that she was a spy. Others believed she was a sign of peace between humans and Alithians. Children who caught glimpses of her through windows thought she was a fairy from old Earth stories. Elias, however, felt only a heavy weight on his shoulders. That evening he was told to bring Lyra to his quarters. Inside, his small room looked the same as always. A desk covered with tools, a narrow bed, and a shelf of old paper books. He did not know what to say. Lyra walked around slowly, studying everything with silent interest. She stopped at the books, touching one gently. "You store words on paper?" she said softly. "We store them in light. Both ways are beautiful." Elias crossed his arms. "Why are you here, really? Don't tell me you're just a gift. People are not gifts." Lyra turned to face him. Her violet eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. I was made for this purpose. Not as a slave, not as a servant. My people believe humans need to see us not as shadows from the stars, but as companions. That is why they created me. I chose to come. Her words unsettled him. She spoke with calm certainty, yet there was something almost fragile in her tone, as if she needed his answer. You don't understand humans, Elias said quietly. We don't own people, at least we shouldn't. Then why do you keep distance from me? Lyra asked suddenly. You looked at me, but you did not touch me. Humans greet each other with touch. They shake hands. They pat shoulders. Why not with me? Elias froze. The question was direct, innocent, but it cut through him like a blade. He rubbed the back of his neck, searching for words. I don't know you, he said finally. And I don't know what you are capable of. Lyra did not look angry. Instead, she seemed thoughtful. She placed her hand on the desk, tapping her fingers lightly. The glow of her markings reflected off the metal surface. Perhaps that is why I am here, she whispered, to teach you that not every unknown must be feared. The next day, life in the colony went on, but not in the same way. People stared when Elias and Lyra walked together. Some asked questions, others avoided her, but Lyra herself was never troubled. She moved with calm curiosity, asking about machines, tools, and the lives of colonists. She helped a farmer lift a heavy crate with strength that surprised everyone. She asked a child why he laughed at a broken toy, and she listened carefully to his answer. That night, Elias found himself watching her as she examined a power conduit in the engineering bay. She leaned close, humming softly to herself, and for a moment the conduit flickered with the same glow as her markings. What did you just do? Elias asked sharply. I listened, Lyra replied. Machines speak if you know how to hear them. Elias shook his head. He did not understand her, not fully, but he could not deny she was remarkable. When they walked back to his quarters, she spoke again. Human, she said gently. I was given to you, but I do not belong to you. I belong to myself, do you understand? Elias looked at her, truly looked this time. She was not just a creation, not just a symbol. She was alive. I understand, he said quietly. At least I'm starting to. Lyra smiled faintly. Good. Then perhaps tomorrow, you will not be afraid to touch my hand. Elias did not answer. He turned away, unsettled yet thoughtful. The night outside was silent, but inside his mind questions burned brighter than ever. And so began the strangest chapter of his life. Living beside a being who was called a gift, yet was far more than anyone had expected. The next few days in the colony felt different for everyone. Lyra's presence was like a spark in a quiet room. Wherever she went, eyes followed. Some stared with suspicion, others with wonder, but no one ignored her. Elias tried to keep his life normal. He went to the engineering bay each morning, checked the power lines, repaired small systems, and trained new workers. Yet no matter where he turned, Lyra was there. She followed him calmly, never demanding, always watching. At first, her questions were about machines. Why do you use metal pipes instead of light channels? Why does this generator make noise? Ours are silent. Why is this machine painted blue? Elias answered as best he could. Sometimes he gave technical explanations, sometimes simple shrugs. But her curiosity never ended. Soon, her questions moved beyond machines. Why do humans eat together? Why not alone? Why do humans laugh at things that are not true? Why do humans hold each other when they are sad? Elias realized that Lyra was not only learning about human tools, but also human emotions. One afternoon, as they walked past the greenhouse, Lyra stopped to watch children play. A group of boys ran in circles, chasing each other with wooden sticks. They shouted loudly, pretending to be soldiers in a great battle. Their laughter echoed under the glass dome. Lyra tilted her head. They fight, but they smile. Why? They're not really fighting, Elias said. They're pretending. It's a game. A game, Lyra repeated slowly. To practice for danger, but without danger. That's one way to put it, Elias admitted. She nodded thoughtfully, her violet eyes following the children's every move. Humans prepare for pain by turning it into joy. That is strange, but beautiful. That evening, back in Elias's quarters, Lyra asked a question that made him freeze. "Human," she said softly. "Why haven't you touched me yet?" Elias looked up from his tools. "Not this again." "You greet your people with handshakes," Lyra continued calmly. "You pat shoulders, you hug children. But me you avoid. Why?" Her tone was not angry. It was curious, almost innocent, but it unsettled him. He set his wrench down and sighed. "Because you're different," he said. "You're not human. I don't know what's right or wrong when it comes to you." Lyra stepped closer, her glowing markings shining faintly in the low light. "Different does not mean dangerous." "I didn't say dangerous," Elias said quickly. "I said unknown." She studied him silently for a moment, then nodded. "Perhaps that is why I am here, to become known." The next day, a small crisis shook the colony. A water pump near the north wall stopped working. Without it, part of the colony's crops would dry out in a matter of days. Elias and his team rushed to fix it, but the system was more damaged than expected. While engineers argued over solutions, Lyra walked forward and placed her hand on the main pipe. The faint glow of her markings spread across the metal. Within moments, the machine began to hum again, water flowing through its channels. The engineers gasped. One of them, a young woman named Mara, whispered, "She fixed it by touching it." Lyra turned to Elias. The machine was not broken, it was confused, it needed guidance. Elias stared, stunned. "Machines don't get confused. Yours do," Lyra said gently. Word of the event spread quickly. Some colonists were amazed, saying Lyra's gift was proof of friendship between humans and Elythians. Others were afraid, claiming she was manipulating technology in ways no human could. At the evening council meeting, Governor Rhea raised the issue. "She repaired the pump without tools," Rhea said. "That is no small thing. Should we allow her access to our systems or restrict her?" One soldier stood and shouted, "Restrict her! Today it's a pump. Tomorrow it could be the defense grid." Another colonist argued, "But she saved our crops. Without her we would have lost food." Voices rose in the chamber. Elias, sitting quietly in the corner, felt all eyes turn to him. Finally, Governor Rhea asked, "Captain Elias, what do you say? She was given to you. Do you trust her?" Elias looked at Lyra, who stood calmly beside him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes met his steadily. He took a breath. "I don't know what she is capable of," he admitted. "But I know this. Today she helped us. She has not harmed anyone. I believe we should give her a chance." The governor nodded slowly. The argument continued, but Elias's words carried weight. The council decided to watch Lyra closely, but not to confine her. Later that night, Elias returned to his quarters with Lyra following quietly. He dropped into his chair, exhausted. "You realize you've made things harder for me," he said. Lyra tilted her head. "Because I helped?" "Because now half the colony thinks you're a miracle, and the other half thinks you're a threat." She stepped closer, her voice soft. "And what do you think, Elias?" He looked at her carefully. "I think you're not telling me everything." Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "You are right. I am not only a gift. I am also a bridge. My people believe humans need to see us not as shadows or threats, but as equals. I was made for that purpose." Elias leaned back, rubbing his temples. "That's a heavy burden to put on one person." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then, perhaps it is good I'm not only a person. I am a Lethian and something more." The next morning, Lyra surprised Elias again. She appeared in the engineering bay wearing a worker's jacket, holding a toolbox. "I wish to help," she said simply. "You don't need to," Elias began. But she interrupted gently. "If I am to understand humans, I must work as they do." So she worked beside him. She carried tools, tightened bolts, and even crawled into small tunnels to check wires. She was stronger than she looked, and her glowing markings sometimes lit the dark spaces better than any lamp. The workers were uneasy at first, but slowly they began to accept her. Mara, the young engineer, even laughed once when Lyra asked why humans shouted at machines when they broke. "Because yelling makes us feel better," Mara explained. Lyra considered this. "Machines cannot hear, yet you yell. Strange." "It's not for them," Mara replied. "It's for us." That night, as Elias walked back with Lyra, she spoke again. "Humans are full of contradictions," she said softly. "They fear what they need. They laugh when they are hurt. They shout at things that cannot listen, and yet they survive." "That's humanity for you," Elias said with a tired smile. Lyra looked at him thoughtfully. "Perhaps I was not only sent to teach. Perhaps I was sent to learn." Elias stopped walking. For the first time since she arrived, he felt something shift inside him. She was not only a creation or a symbol. She was curious, alive, and perhaps more human than he had thought. When they reached his quarters, Lyra paused at the door. "One more question, Elias. What is it now?" he asked, half smiling. "Do you still fear touching me?" He froze, caught between honesty and pride. Finally, he said quietly, "I don't know." Lyra smiled, not unkindly. "Then perhaps one day, you will." She stepped inside, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Elias followed, his mind heavy with questions but also with something new, the beginning of trust. The colony lived in uneasy balance. Days passed, but whispers about Lyra never stopped. Some called her a miracle, others called her a spy. Wherever she went, eyes followed her, measuring her steps. Children were curious, workers were cautious, and soldiers kept their hands near weapons when she walked by. Elias tried to ignore the tension. He focused on his duties, repairing machines, training young engineers, and keeping the colony alive. But it was impossible to pretend nothing had changed. Lyra's presence had become the heart of every conversation. One morning, Governor Rhea called Elias into her office. The room was small but filled with maps, reports, and glowing screens. Rhea sat behind her desk, her face stern. "Captain," she began, "we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Elias asked. Rhea tapped the screen. A strange signal pulsed on the display, irregular and sharp. "We've been receiving this interference for the last week. It scrambles our long-range communications. At first we thought it was natural, but the pattern is too precise. It feels deliberate." Elias frowned. "From the Alithians?" "We don't know," Rhea said. "But the fact that the signal appeared after your gift arrived makes people nervous." Elias clenched his jaw. "You think Lyra is involved?" Rhea raised a hand. "I'm not accusing her. But the colony can't ignore the timing. People are frightened." Elias left the office with a heavy heart. That evening, as he walked back to his quarters, he found Lyra standing outside, looking at the night sky. The stars reflected in her violet eyes, and her glowing markings shimmered faintly. "You heard, didn't you?" Elias asked quietly. Lyra nodded. "The signal, it is not a Lithian. It feels wrong." "Wrong?" Lyra turned to him, her voice lower than usual. "It is like a shadow hiding in the light. It moves in patterns that are not alive, but not fully machine either. Whoever sends it does not wish to talk. They wish to listen." Elias felt a chill. "You mean spying?" "Yes," Lyra said simply. The next days grew tense. More ships traveling near the colony disappeared without sending signals back. The council grew restless, and the soldiers sharpened their suspicions. A group of colonists even demanded that Lyra be confined until the truth was clear. One night, Elias walked into the mess hall and found a heated argument. A soldier named Kellen was shouting at Lyra, his face red with anger. "You bring trouble here," Kellen barked. "First you play tricks with machines, now ships vanish and signals jam our lines. What else are you hiding?" Lyra stood calm, her hands folded in front of her. Her voice was steady. "I hide nothing. But you fear me. And so you see shadows where none exist. Kellen slammed his fist on the table. Don't talk like you know us. Before the fight grew worse, Elias stepped between them. Enough, he said firmly. She's done nothing to harm us. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I spoke for her. The mess hall went silent. All eyes turned to Elias. Kellen glared, but after a tense moment he stormed out. Lyra looked at Elias with quiet gratitude. Why defend me? She asked softly later, as they walked back to his quarters. Because it was the right thing to do, Elias said. Even if it costs you their trust? Elias gave a tired smile. Trust isn't worth much if you only keep it by betraying what's right. For the first time, Lyra's calm expression shifted. Her eyes softened, and her voice carried something almost human. Warmth. You are different, Elias. The following days brought more danger. The signal grew stronger, disrupting not only communications but also navigation systems. A small cargo ship crashed near the outer ridge, its controls scrambled. The crew survived, but the wreck left everyone shaken. Lyra offered to help analyze the signal. At first, the council refused, but when human systems failed to understand the code, they allowed her to try. Elias watched as she placed her hands on the console, her markings glowing brighter than ever. The screens filled with strange patterns of light, and for a moment it seemed like the machines were speaking her language. This is not a Lethean, she said at last. It is something else. Something hungry. Hunger, Elias repeated. Lyra nodded. Yes, it searches, it listens, it waits. Like a predator watching its prey. The council grew uneasy. If Lyra was right, then an enemy was near. That night, Elias found Lyra sitting in the engineering bay, alone. She was humming softly, her glow lighting the dark. Why do you stay here? Elias asked. Because the machines are honest, Lyra replied. They do not lie. They only break or work. It is simple. Elias sat beside her, feeling the weight of the day. The others don't see you that way. To them, you're still a mystery. They don't know if you'll break or work. Lyra looked at him. And you, Elias? What do you see? He hesitated. Then, slowly, he said, I see someone trying. And that matters more than what others think. Lyra's violet eyes shimmered, and for the first time she smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. The following week brought another turning point. The colony's outer sensors detected movement, unknown ships slipping between asteroids. The enemy had arrived, though their identity was still unclear. Panic spread quickly. Soldiers prepared defenses. Colonists whispered about evacuation. And once again, suspicion turned toward Lyra. Some believed she had summoned the ships. Others thought she would betray them in battle. But Elias stood firm. She's not the enemy, he told the council. She warned us before anyone else. Without her, we'd be blind. Governor Rhea nodded but warned him. Then she must prove it in action, not just words. That night, Elias and Lyra sat in his quarters. The air was heavy with silence. Finally, Elias spoke. They don't trust you. Maybe they never will. Lyra turned to him, her voice quiet but strong. Then it is enough that you do. Elias met her eyes. He saw no deception, no hidden threat, only determination. Slowly, almost against his own fears, he reached out and placed his hand on hers. Her skin was cool, smooth and faintly glowing. Lyra froze as if the simple touch was more powerful than any words. Now you touched me, she whispered. Elias gave a small nod. Now I did. For a moment, the colony's fears, the strange signals, the looming ships, all faded. There was only trust, fragile but real, shared between human and alien. But outside the walls, in the cold dark of space, the predators waited. The colony had known fear before. Life on a distant moon was never easy. They had faced storms, food shortages, and failing machines. but nothing had filled them with dread like the sight of ships sliding through the black sky, silent and unknown. From the watchtowers, soldiers reported dark silhouettes moving between asteroids. No lights, no signals, no banners, just shapes that drifted closer each hour. Inside the council chamber, tension was thick. The screens showed grainy images of the vessels. They were jagged, uneven, almost like broken metal held together by force. Their movements were slow but deliberate, like predators circling prey. Governor Ria's voice was steady, though her eyes betrayed worry. They are not Alithians, that much is clear. The question is, who are they? Lyra stood at the edge of the room, silent until Ria turned to her. Do you know these ships? The governor asked. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, but I know their intent. They are hunters. They come not to speak, but to take. The council erupted in whispers. Soldiers demanded stronger defenses, engineers worried about power supplies, and farmers asked what would happen if they were forced to flee. Elias sat quietly, listening. He had seen fear before, but never so sharp, never so close. When the council argued too loudly, he finally spoke. Whatever they are, they'll test us soon. We can't run. The colony isn't ready to move. So we hold the walls. Governor, Ria nodded. Agreed, but we need every advantage we can find. Her eyes turned to Lyra. That includes you? Some protested instantly. She's not one of us, shouted Kellen, the soldier who had argued before. What if she leads them straight inside? She saved our crops, Mara, the young engineer, shot back. Without her, we'd already be starving. The room filled with voices again. Lyra looked to Elias. For a moment, it seemed like she was waiting for him to decide her fate. Elias stood, his voice firm. She's not the enemy. If she wanted to harm us, she's had 100 chances already. We need her. The council quieted. Ria studied Elias for a moment, then nodded. Very well. Lyra, will you stand with us? Lyra placed a hand over her glowing markings. Yes, I will stand. The next day, the enemy came closer. At dawn, the sky above the colony flickered as a strange energy washed over the shields. Lights dimmed, machines stuttered, and alarms rang across the base. Elias ran to the engineering bay. Report! The power grid is unstable, shouted Mara. Something's draining energy from the shield. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter. It is not just a weapon. It is a feeder. They drink your energy like water. Elias clenched his fists. Then how do we stop it? She placed her hands on the control panel. The machines flickered, then steadied as her markings pulsed in rhythm. For a brief moment, the shield stabilized. Like this, she said softly. But outside, the ships moved closer. One broke formation and fired a lance of green light. It struck the shield, shaking the ground beneath the colony. People screamed as walls rattled and glass cracked. Return fire, Governor Ria ordered through the comm. The colony's cannons blazed, streaks of light shooting into the sky. One struck an enemy vessel, tearing a hole through its uneven hull. For a heartbeat, hope rose. Then the ship kept moving, slowly as if wounded but not destroyed. They don't break easily, Elias muttered. Lyra's voice was calm but urgent, because they are not alive as you know it. They are fused, metal and mind. Half machine, half something else. Elias stared at her. You mean they're living ships? Not fully, Lyra said. Not alive like you or me. But alive, enough to hunger. The battle raged for hours. The colony's shields held, but just barely. Every strike drained their energy, and every shot from the cannons felt too small against the hulking shapes above. Inside the engineering bay, Elias and Lyra worked side by side. Sweat covered Elias's face as he repaired circuits while Lyra kept the machines from failing completely. At times, her glow filled the entire room like a heartbeat spreading through metal. You're burning yourself out, Elias said once, seeing her markings dim after a surge. Lyra looked at him calmly. Then I will burn, but the colony will stand. Outside, Kellen led soldiers on the walls, firing round after round at the advancing ships. He no longer shouted at Lyra. He no longer doubted. He only fought, as all humans did when survival was at stake. Then came the moment that changed everything. One enemy vessel broke through the defense line and descended toward the colony itself. Its hull opened, revealing claws of black metal, reaching for the walls. "Shields failing," Mara screamed. "If it hits, we're finished." Elias looked at Lyra. She met his eyes without fear. "Open the core," she said. Elias froze. "The core? That's insane. If it destabilizes, we'll all—" "Trust me," she said, her voice steady. Against every instinct, Elias obeyed. He keyed in the override, and the protective shell around the colony's main reactor slid open. Energy roared like a storm, blinding bright. Lyra stepped into the light. Her markings flared, brighter than ever before until her whole body seemed made of fire and crystal. She raised her arms and the reactor's energy surged through her, flowing into the sky. A pillar of light shot upward, striking the descending enemy ship. The vessel shook, twisted, and then tore apart, fragments scattering into the void. The colony erupted in cheers, but Elias did not cheer. He rushed to Lyra, who collapsed to her knees, her glow dimming. "Lyra," he shouted, catching her before she fell. Her voice was faint but clear. "I told you, not every unknown is to be feared." Elias held her carefully, feeling the faint pulse of energy still alive within her. "Don't talk like you're finished. You're not done yet." Around them, the colony's defenses roared again. The other ships, seeing one of their own destroyed, slowly pulled back. The hunters, for all their hunger, had tasted danger. They withdrew into the black sky, leaving the colony shaken but alive. When the dust settled, the council gathered once more. This time, no one doubted Lyra. Soldiers who had once feared her now spoke of her with respect. Farmers called her a savior. Even Kellen, who had shouted the loudest against her, lowered his head and said, "I was wrong." Governor Rhea turned to Elias. "Your gift has saved us all." It seems the Alithians knew what they were doing. Elias shook his head. "She's not a gift, she's not a tool, she's one of us now." Lyra, still weak, raised her head. Her eyes met Elias's, and for the first time she looked almost human in her exhaustion and quiet pride. Later, in the quiet of his quarters, Elias sat beside her as she rested. The glow of her markings was faint, but steady. "You risked everything," he said softly. Lyra opened her eyes. "So did you?" Elias managed a tired smile. "We'll both keep risking it. Because that's what it means to be part of this colony. Part of humanity." Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then, with a small, gentle smile, she said, "And now you did more than touch me. You held me." Elias said nothing. He only tightened his hand around hers, silent but steady. Outside, the colony repaired its walls, but inside, a bond stronger than fear was beginning to grow. The hunters would return, Elias knew. But when they did, humanity would not stand alone. The colony was quiet, but it was a quiet born from relief, not calm. For days, the humans and their allies had rebuilt walls, repaired power lines, and re-established communication systems. The enemy fleet had withdrawn, but their presence left scars on machines, on buildings, and in the hearts of those who had seen the shapes drifting in the black sky. Elias walked through the main plaza, watching colonists move quickly but carefully. Soldiers carried supplies. Engineers repaired shields. Children, once frightened, now ran between walls, pretending to be heroes of battles they had only seen from afar. Lyra followed him, walking with a gentle confidence. Her markings glowed faintly now, no longer the brilliant pulse of battle, but a soft, steady light that reminded Elias of her presence. "You are well received now," Elias said quietly, looking at her. Lyra nodded. "They have seen what I am capable of, and what we can do together. Yet, there is still fear." Elias glanced around at the workers, soldiers, and farmers. Some still stared, some still whispered. But the difference now was that no one openly challenged her. Fear is part of being human, he said, but so is courage. Today they learned both. They entered the council chamber together. Governor Rhea looked up from reports, her expression tired but satisfied. "Captain," she said, "we have received a communication from the Elythian Council." Elias exchanged a glance with Lyra. "What do they want?" "They wish to speak directly with her." "And with you," Rhea said. "They are curious and pleased." Lyra's violet eyes softened. "It seems my work is not yet complete." Elias smiled faintly. "You've done enough already." The Elythians' transmission appeared on the largest screen in the council chamber. Figures taller than humans, with luminous markings similar to Lyra's, spoke in calm tones. "Lyra has chosen wisely," said the Elythian leader. "Humans are capable of great kindness. You, Elias, are a reflection of that. She has learned from you, and now she chooses where her future will be." Elias felt his chest tighten. "She chooses?" "Yes," Lyra said, turning to him. "I was sent as a gift, but I am not a possession. I am a being, and I choose my place among humans." The council listened, some leaning forward in surprise. The soldiers who had doubted her before now looked at her with respect, while engineers and civilians whispered quietly about what it meant. Elias took a deep breath. "And you choose to stay here?" Lyra met his gaze steadily. "Yes. This colony, these people, they trusted me when others hesitated. And you believed in me before anyone else." Elias felt a warmth in his chest. "Then you are no longer a gift. You're part of us." Lyra's glow pulsed slightly as if in agreement. She stepped closer. "I am not only part of the colony, I am part of humanity now. Not as an object, not as a tool, but as one who shares their struggle and their hope." For the first time, the weight of her words struck Elias fully. She had not come to serve or to be admired. She had come to understand, to connect, and to stand as an equal. And now she had chosen to stay, not because she was told to, but because she wanted to. In the days that followed, the colony began rebuilding not just walls and machines, but relationships. Lyra worked alongside engineers, soldiers, and farmers, sharing her knowledge of technology and alien systems. She helped redesign the shields, making them stronger and more efficient. She trained soldiers in strategies that combined human ingenuity with Elythian precision. Elias watched her, often from a distance, feeling a quiet pride. He had never believed in miracles, but in Lyra, he saw something extraordinary. Not magic, not power, but partnership. One afternoon, while repairing a solar array, Elias noticed Lyra studying children playing near the repaired walls. She smiled softly. "Why do they play even after danger?" he asked. Lyra looked thoughtful. "Because humans survive by hope. Fear teaches caution, but hope teaches life." Elias nodded. "I've never heard it put so simply." Lyra tilted, her head, her glow gentle. "It is simple, and yet humans make it beautiful." That evening, Elias found Lyra in his quarters. She was sitting quietly, gazing out the window at the stars. He joined her, sitting in silence for a long moment. "You were sent as a gift," he said finally. "But you gave more than that. You taught us courage and trust and something I didn't expect. Friendship, maybe even more." Lyra turned to him, her eyes bright. "I came to learn, and in doing so I taught. That is the way of life. Elias, we are never just one thing. We give, we receive, and we grow together." Elias's hand hovered near hers. He remembered her question from long ago. "Why haven't you touched me yet?" Now he did not hesitate. He placed his hand gently over hers. Her skin was cool, soft, and alive with the faint glow of her markings. Lyra did not recoil. Instead, she leaned slightly closer, letting the connection remain. "Now I understand," she said softly. "Touch is not about possession. It is about sharing, about trust." Elias smiled quietly. "Then we share it." Outside, the stars shone silently, vast and endless. The colony, once on the edge of fear, now stood united. Humans and Lyra, an alien and human, worked together not just for survival, but for something greater: hope, friendship, and a future that was theirs to build. The Elythian Council's transmission returned one last time. "Lyra has chosen wisely, and humans, you are capable of more than you know. Together, your future is bright." Elias and Lyra watched the stars in silence. He did not speak, and she did not need to. Words were unnecessary when understanding ran deeper than any language. Weeks passed, and the colony began to thrive. Gardens grew lush again, the shields were stronger than ever, and children laughed freely, no longer afraid of shadows. Humans worked alongside Lyra, learning her ways while she learned theirs. Elias walked through the plaza one evening, Lyra at his side. Soldiers saluted her not out of duty, but out of respect. Engineers consulted her not out of fear, but out of admiration. And the people of the colony, once doubtful, now looked at her with wonder. "You've changed everything," Elias said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "No, you did. Humans always have the power to grow. I only showed it in a new way." Elias glanced at her, violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Then, what happens next?" Lyra smiled, a small, hopeful smile. "Next, we build. Together. Not as human and alien, not as gift and receiver, but as companions. As equals. That is what the future should be." Elias nodded. "Then let's start." And so, under the vast sky of distant stars, the colony moved forward. Humans and Lyra worked side by side, learning from each other, growing stronger together. The shadow of fear that had once hovered over them faded, replaced by something far brighter: trust, hope, and the unshakable belief that when species choose to stand together, they can overcome anything. In quiet moments, Lyra would ask him the same question she had asked at the very beginning. "Why haven't you touched me yet?" And Elias would smile, gently placing his hand over hers. "Now I know," he would say softly. "Touch is not given, it is shared." Lyra's violet eyes glimmered with a quiet joy. "Then we are truly companions." The stars shone on them, endless and bright. And for the first time, the humans of the colony and their extraordinary ally looked at the future not with fear, but with hope.